Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Monday, January 24th, 2022. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Tony Messenger, Metro columnist for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, author of Profit and Punishment: How America Criminalizes the Poor in the Name of Justice. Also on the program today, Russia heightens its war footing. NATO responds. A Trump-appointed judge blocks the vaccine requirement that the White House requirement that federal workers be vaccinated. 98% are already in compliance. So it's just for the next time. CDC data shows unvaccinated 50-year-old and ups are 45 times more likely to be hospitalized by COVID. Meanwhile, Omicron appears to have peaked in most places around the country. Supreme Court once again to review another affirmative action policy. 7 school boards sue Virginia's Governor Youngkin over his new masking can only be optional order. Kyrsten Sinema censured by the Arizona Democratic Party over her filibuster vote. And testers at Activision Blizzard vote to unionize as employees at REI seek a vote. And all across the country, low wages and COVID driving a mass exodus of nursing home workers. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us at the beginning of the week. Here with me, as always, Emma Vigeland. Hello, Emma.
Hello, Sam.
How are you?
Fine.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Big game last night,
It's
right?
hard for me not to talk about it. Yeah, it was such a good week.
I know, I can tell you. I can see you're just like bursting at the seams.
I'm trying to get away from it, but I can't. Yeah, it was amazing weekend. The NFL must be very happy.
Did you win? Mm-hmm. Yep, that's what I could tell was going on here.
I had a really rough.
I want to make it clear. We didn't say anything prior to the show beginning, but it's just clear. Like
there's an atmosphere.
I had a rough start because I bet on the Titans to win, which was stupid because I was whatever. I just thought that the offensive line would not be able to protect Joe Burrow. He ended up getting sacked 9 times, and I was like, it's going to be too much. But he's the man. But then the rest of the weekend went very well for me. Yes.
Yeah, I had no idea what you just
Even
said.
though I am sad about the Bills because I feel terribly for their fans.
Yeah, people seem very upset about it.
They're a likable team, and Josh Allen does not get the. Josh Allen may be better than Mahomes right now playing in terms of this season. So I got to be real. I think he's the best quarterback in the league. So
okay. Well,
also I feel bad from the Bills from the 90s.
Me too. I mean, the Giants had a hand in one of those. That was the wide right field goal, 20-19.
Yeah, good
It
old.
was before I was born, though.
Was it Eason? Was it Eason? Who was their quarterback that came from the
Jim
Pats?
Kelly, I think.
No.
Hostetler.
No, was it not Tony Eason? Was it who? God, who was before Brady on the Pats that went to
Bledsoe.
Bledsoe. Jesus, I can't believe I couldn't remember his name. All right. Well, anyways, so we got that out of the way. I knew it was like opening up a dam, but it was like you're like
Close it back up.
could see you were like shaking. You were so ecstatic. Big week ahead of us, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, we've got the whole week ahead of us, and it's Omicron seems to have peaked, which is good. Now we're just all waiting around for the next one, and of course, there will be, because it's an authoritarian state, and people like to make up the idea, and so many of us on the left really enjoy being in lockdown
forever.
Yeah,
we love masks because it largely hides our granola crunchy leftist ugly pimply faces.
Exactly.
Right?
That's the big part of it. Yeah, you can eat granola in really inappropriate places, and nobody can tell because you've got your mask up.
No one can tell. All your food caught in your beard.
Yep.
And that's why we have such low quality on our cameras.
There you go. Exactly. Why did someone say this? Talk about that?
People really want us to get to 1080p.
What are these? Are these 720?
No, these cameras are good, but it's just the system we're going through. Only
okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, listen. Here's the bottom line. If we upgrade the system, I'm putting what do you call it? Stockings over the cameras. That's what you do back in the old trick back in the day.
Stockings?
Yeah. Stockings softens the lens.
Oh, like the stuff.
Yeah, I'm old, and so I'm not gonna put 1080p, 4000K or whatever the hell it is.
Someone clips Sam screaming, "I'm old."
Well, I mean, you can hear that almost like
from space
10 times a day. Subtext. Exactly. Let's go to this. I mean, I honestly, we spoke on Friday to Stephen Wertheim, also to Representative Ilhan Omar. Interesting conversation, I thought, with her, with both of them actually, and even with David Feldman afterwards. Although that was much more uncomfortable,
traumatizing conversation.
And but you should go and check that out. But to a certain extent, it is. There is just a momentum that's associated with NATO and our foreign policy, and not just ours, that doesn't allow for any type of sense of of why we need to have an alliance with a country that such an alliance provokes more potential for armed conflict. And
think about it from Russia's perspective. With the flirtation of Ukraine being in NATO, that means that I don't know how many countries are in NATO, but many countries are allied with them right along their border, and they have this.
And they have this like a mutual security agreement, and obviously, you want Ukraine to have the opportunity to exist and to grow as a country, but maybe there could be a deal struck. Like, we will, commit to allowing them to maintain some independence as long as you commit to allowing them to maintain some independence. But right now, there is a sense that Russia is, primed to invade Ukraine in some fashion or another. You're starting to see talk of troop deployment, U.S. and NATO troop deployment, different places in that region. So we will see. But here is Tony Blinken on with Dana Bash on CNN. And essentially, one can understand why you wouldn't take certain things off the table, because that's just the way they play this game. But nevertheless, distressing.
Scenario in which more U.S. service members become involved here?
One of the things that we've been very clear about, besides the massive economic, financial consequences that would befall Russia if it further commits aggression against Ukraine, is the ongoing, continued buildup of defense capacity in Ukraine, and equally continuing to build up NATO's defensive capacities, including on the so-called eastern flank, the countries near Russia. And the alliance is looking at very practical and important measures that it would take in the event of further Russian aggression.
So you mentioned different kinds of aggression. Let's talk about one specific potential. Russian-backed forces currently occupy part, but not all, of the Donbass region in eastern Ukraine. Would seizing or recognizing the entire Donbass region qualify as an invasion and result in the crippling sanctions that you're threatening?
If a single additional Russian force goes into Ukraine in an aggressive way, as I said, that would trigger a swift, a severe, and a united response from us and from Europe. And again, there are other things that Russia could do that fall short of actually sending additional forces into Ukraine. And again, across the board, we're prepared with Europe for a swift and calibrated and very united response. We're looking at every single scenario, preparing for every single one.
President Biden said an invasion would be the most consequential thing that's happened in the world in terms of war and peace.
He's really just like leaning into that. I am a serious State Department official voice.
It's interesting, too, that he keeps saying Europe as opposed to NATO. And I wonder if that reflects maybe some dissent within NATO. I mean,
Germany's already been open about their desire not to get involved.
Yeah, it's extremely difficult to tell exactly what's going on here. And but nevertheless, I think, again, this is one of those situations where the aggressiveness and like Stephen Wertheim, pointed out, of George W. Bush in promising NATO membership to Ukraine 15 years ago, some odd, you head down a path, and it's like the mistake was made 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it has, and this is where we're at. So it's, we shall see. But we're getting a lot of takes of like, what was it? Joe Scarborough said something, I think, on Twitter. The withdrawal from Afghanistan is what convinced that Putin he could do this. And this is just honestly one of the most like moronic takes possible. One of the most moronic takes possible. If you are a country that wants to invade another country and you are wary of the United States striking back, do you do this at a time where they have no military conflicts, or do they have multiple military conflicts that they're waging? I mean, this is just simple, such obvious. To have nothing, if China had some desire in any way to annex Taiwan, they may. One would imagine the time that they would do it would be when the United States is busy with its hands full in other conflicts. Right. Not when there is, they could literally focus on one. I mean, it's just absurd.
And then there's the other takes where it's, everyone's so concerned about Ukraine, right? Which is just, I mean, they see it as a way to exert American might, and what I fear the road that we're going down is involvement that maybe isn't as transparent. Say, like the Washington Post reported the other day that the CIA may be considering funding a guerrilla force in Ukraine, and then it becomes a proxy war, which is part and parcel of a Cold War, and then we move further and further down a road that we can't come back from. And that's the real concern here.
I would be shocked if the CIA is not involved already.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, redouble efforts. Michael McFaul, big establishment,
former ambassador to Russia, I think.
Yeah, tweeted out, imagine if during the Berlin blockade in 1948, Truman had said, better not send any planes, Moscow might think it too provocative. There's one dissimilarity is it was 1949 that Russia got nuclear weapons, so just one difference in comparison is maybe we don't want to...
It sort of feels like there's a slight difference right now between the Soviet Union's ability for expansiveness And one could also, point out that, it's not like the Cold War necessarily was the best use of resources over that time. In a moment, we'll be talking to Tony Messenger, Metro columnist for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and author of Profit and Punishment, How America Criminalizes the Poor in the Name of Justice. But first, let me remind you, you have now really 2 days left, period. If you hear my voice as I'm speaking, you have 2 days left until 11:59 p.m. tomorrow, Tuesday, January 25th, to get your CB Day tinctures. And folks, let me be clear. Let me grab this. I had this right one. Sunset Lake Sebede.com. Use the code Left is Best for 20% off generally. But like I say, until 11:59 p.m. tomorrow night, you can get their new tinctures. They have 750 milligram, 1,500 milligram, 3,000 milligram, 6,000 milligram tinctures are now available in 2 new flavors, mint and citrus. And also, what is new is they have that 6,000 milligram full spectrum tincture.
Oh, yeah.
They're releasing these new flavored tinctures. If you like the natural tinctures flavor, the one that's a little bit more like hempy tasting, they still got it. Those are still available. I will tell you that the mint has become my go-to at bedtime. And the 6,000 milligram, you get more Sebede. People should understand that we say Sebede in that way because of, like, sometimes we get in trouble with places that we stream.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but it is. They also have, like I say, this new product, the 6,000 milligram full spectrum tincture. It's made with purified CBD distillate. The 6,000 milligram tincture is the most powerful product that Sunset Lake CBD has ever produced. A single dropper holds 100 milligrams of CBD. Now, I will tell you this. The one of the things that really makes Sunset Lake different from other places that sell and produce this is that they get third-party certification of exactly what is in all of their products. You can find it on their website. They'll send it to you if you want with your products. Starting, doesn't matter when it started, but it ends tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern. No, was it 12 p.m. Eastern? 11:59 p.m. Eastern. All CBD tinctures will be 30% off. Now is the time to try these if you've never tried them before. Orders over $100 will receive a free 750 milligram tincture. It's a $30 value for free. You don't need a promo code. All the products will be automatically discounted at checkout. Visit sunsetlakecbd.com. Try these amazing new products and take advantage of the sale while it lasts. It ends in 24, 30, 40 hours.
It ends soon.
Soon. All right. I want to welcome to the program Tony Messenger. He is a Metro columnist for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, author of Profit and Punishment, How America Criminalizes the Poor in the Name of Justice. Tony, welcome to the program. I'm here with Emma Vigeland. Thanks for joining us.
Sam and Emma, thanks for having me. Good to be here.
So you tell this story, I guess, that is really, in many respects, a national story, but it takes place in localities, primarily through the stories of 3 single women. But first, just tell us, how did you come across this dynamic? Like what that led you to write the book?
So it started all the way back in 2014 in Ferguson, when I was first introduced to this concept of poor people being abused by the courts. In this case, particularly poor Black people in North St. Louis County, who often got traffic tickets and other minor offenses and were regularly arrested and rearrested and spent time in jail, often because they couldn't afford to keep up with all of these traffic tickets. Many of us, as we were watching the protests unveil themselves on the streets in Ferguson and St. Louis, became sort of introduced to this idea for the first time of cities using their police forces and their municipal courts as fundraising tools. And then a couple of years later, in 2017 and 2018, I came across a couple of cases in rural Missouri involving poor white Missourians in which they were sent back to jail after they had been convicted of a minor misdemeanor, but because they had gotten a bill for their time in jail. And that is a statute that I didn't realize existed. A lot of lawyers that I talked to didn't realize it existed. And in fact, every state in the nation, except for New Hampshire, has a similar statute that allows cities and counties and in some cases, state prisons to charge people for their time in jail. And what was happening in Missouri, and what I since found out is happening in states all over the country, is that people are put back in jail when they can't afford to pay for court costs, including sometimes a bill for jail. And these fines and fees that are added to the court system, primarily for poor people charged with minor misdemeanors, create this whole cycle of poverty and debt that is impossible for people to escape. And it is literally the state using the tyranny of big government to put people in debtor's prison. And as I started writing these stories, I would hear from people and get tips on, oh my gosh, you need to talk to my cousin in Dent County and Caldwell County and St. Francis County. And I found that the poor people in these counties that were the victims of the system, they all knew about it. They just figured, wow, this is the way it works. And in fact, unfortunately, one of the things I point out in my book is that's how the criminal justice system works all across the country. We have cities and counties using their police departments and their municipal courts and their county and district courts as fundraising tools, as backdoor taxes. And the victims are real people charged with minor events who end up having devastating consequences in their lives because they end up spending time in jail long after they've served their time because they owe a bunch of money that is being collected for a bunch of things that have absolutely nothing to do with the crime they were charged with, because our governments want to use the courts as a way to raise money.
I want to get to the specific cases that you outlined too, but is this a function? I mean, because usually you think like, oh, well, if you're looking to steal some money, you go to a place where there's the most money. In this instance, you're going to the place where there isn't the most money, but maybe there's the least amount of power to do anything about it. How much of a hole, I guess, is there in the budgets of, and a lot of this has to do with rural areas in particular, relative to what it was years ago? I mean, in other words, like how much of a need is out there that they stumbled upon this, if it is a function of trying to raise money?
Well, it's interesting. You hit on something that I talk about in the book, and that is that using fines and fees to fund government is horribly inefficient because 80% of the people in the court system happen to be poor. We know that because of statistics where they qualify for the public defender system. And so you're literally talking about governments trying to tax its poorest citizens and not doing a very good job of it in terms of raising money. There was a study in New Mexico that looked at how much it costs to try to raise money this way and found out that governments are spending more money trying to collect fines and fees than they're actually bringing in. And so it's a really bad system. But the reason that it continues is because the legislatures that pass these laws that allow the fines and fees to get out of control, people come to them, various constituencies come to them and say, hey, look, we need money for X, Y, or Z. And those legislatures, many of them, a lot of the states that I write about in the book, Missouri, Oklahoma, South Carolina, prominently, all three states with conservative legislatures that are generally anti-tax. Their state lawmakers have all signed Grover Norquist's "I'm never going to raise taxes ever again in the history of my life, no matter what" pledge. And so when somebody comes to them, like a group of retired sheriffs who want to increase their retirement fund, rather than go to the general revenue, which is how most government services are funded, lawmakers say, well, we'll just add a $3 fee to all the court cases. And the poor people end up paying for that fee. And that $3 fee gets added to a $10 fee and a $5 fee and a $15 fee. And all of these things add up, and they end up to a cycle of poverty for poor people where they end up being put back in jail. And so what's happening is that the left hand and the right hand, none of them are really talking. The sheriffs go to the legislature, and the legislature add this fee. The fee gets added. The Supreme Court says, here's the list of fees you're allowed to collect. The local judge gets that list. And when they get a defendant in front of them, say, well, you're supposed to owe this money. You have to pay this money. And rather than waive it because they're poor, or even have an ability to pay hearing to determine whether or not they should be paying those fees, they just accept as part of the regular course of action, we're tough on crime. You came before us. You owe us this money. If you don't pay us this money, we're going to put you back in jail. And that's exactly what they do. And they do it over and over and over again with devastating consequences until lawmakers or civil rights attorneys or Supreme Courts step up and say, wait a minute, this is wrong. This is debtor's prison. We outlawed those in the 1800s. We're not supposed to do this. But it takes a tremendous amount of effort, as I outline in the book, in Missouri and in Oklahoma and South Carolina. I write about a case in Idaho where the Supreme Court said, hey, you know what, we're not going to allow this anymore. It takes a tremendous amount of effort to get folks to really recognize, wait a minute, we're putting people in jail because they're poor. Why are we doing this? What are we going to do to undo this scheme?
So you mentioned debtors' prisons there, and that's really, of course, the first thing that comes to my mind, right? This is a modern day debtors' prison. They're supposed to be illegal. Has there been since this, I guess this would be what, a 14th Amendment violation here for equal protection? Like, has there been a challenge, a 14th Amendment challenge to these? Because it seems to me that this violates precedent when debtors' prisons were made illegal.
Yes, so two of the federal lawsuits that I write about, one of them in Oklahoma and one of them in South Carolina, specifically bring 14th Amendment violations to the court. The problem is, if you ask a judge who's putting a poor person in jail because they're poor, if they're sending them to debtor's prison, the judge says, oh, no. See, this person missed a hearing, so I'm sending them to court because they missed a hearing. And then you ask further, well, what was that hearing for? Well, that hearing was to collect money for fines and fees. Or that hearing was to determine whether or not they had a probation violation because they couldn't afford to pay for their ankle bracelet, or they couldn't afford to pay for their private for-profit probation company that was charging them $30 a month for drug testing. All of these things that lead to people ending up back in jail, sometimes on pretextual reasons, i.e. they missed a court date, they had a warrant out for their arrest, they failed a drug test. All of them have to do with the underlying reason of we're collecting fines and fees from poor people and requiring them to come to court month after month after their cases have been adjudicated. And it's amazing. If you go to any jurisdiction in this country on a day where a judge has what they call their law day, where, you know, people who got all of these summons have to show up. There's a great story out of Alabama just this last week about a town there that has this problem, in which they basically set up their police department as a mini ATM. And the reporter talks about going to court, and there is just this line of people standing outside the courtroom to get in, and all of them are just there because they owe money on minor tickets that the city wants to use to collect to become its tax base.
What about the third parties who are making money off of this? I mean, it's horribly inefficient for to raise revenue from the perspective of a state or a municipality. But what about like you write about the I think it was in the Killian case, and I want to get to hers, but that her court debt was sold to Aberdeen Enterprises, and I imagine there's other sort of like outfits like this that will buy court debt and then they attempt to recover, X number cents on the dollar type of thing. But third parties like that, third parties like private prisons, how much are they profiting from this process? Because I imagine they're also turning around and they're a lobbying force at the State House.
Well, yes. And what happens is the private companies that are part of this sort of prison industrial complex, they partner with groups that are connected to public safety. So, for instance, Aberdeen Enterprises in Oklahoma, which is being sued as part of the federal civil rights lawsuit involving Kendi Killman, one of the main characters in my book, who got arrested on a minor misdemeanor and ended up for years getting all of these notices because she couldn't afford to pay about $1,000 in fines and fees. She lives off of disability. Aberdeen buys the debt. And when they buy the debt from the county, they then add a surcharge. And then they send the collection to the person that owes the debt. And this private company basically threatens them with more jail time if they don't pay the debt. And so the debt that these poor people owe ends up getting higher and higher because of the involvement of these private companies. Well, one of the things that Aberdeen does is it signs a contract with the sheriffs that hire it or the counties that hire it, that they get a kickback. Completely legal. They sign as part of the contract. The same as any of you who have ever emailed with somebody in jail. I email with folks in jail all the time. There's a private company called JPay that takes lots of my money and lots of the money of folks who are unfortunately detainees in local and state and federal prisons. When JPay comes in to offer paid email for inmates, they sign a contract with the local county jail in which the county jail gets a piece of the cut. They get a cut of the contract. And so it creates this unholy alliance between private for-profit companies that make more money if the jails are full. And so one of the reasons that a lot of local jails are full is some of these local companies are private for-profit probation companies. So Brooke Bergen, who's one of the main characters in my book, is this woman from rural Missouri who stole an $8 tube of mascara. She ended up doing a year in the county jail for stealing an $8 tube of mascara. Now, people listening are going to say, wow, wait a minute, that's ridiculous. Nobody does a year in jail for shoplifting an $8 tube of mascara. But the reason she did is when she got out of jail after she was originally arrested, she's now being supervised by a for-profit probation company. And that for-profit probation company, she's got to pay them a monthly fee. And then they decide to drug test her. Now, keep in mind, she wasn't charged with a drug offense. But Brooke Bergen, like a lot of poor people in rural Missouri, had an opioid addiction. She had a meth addiction. She was battling drug addiction for much of her adult life. And so the private for-profit probation company is drug testing her. And when she fails a drug test or she misses a phone call to go take that drug test, the private for-profit probation company calls the judge and says, you know what, put her back in jail. She violated her pretrial release conditions. So they set a court hearing. She goes before the judge. The judge says, well, you failed the drug test. I'm putting you in jail for 10 days. Serve you a lesson. You know what happens when she gets out of jail for 10 days? She gets another bill for more jail time that she can't afford to pay. So this happens to Brooke 2 or 3 different times. The judge eventually just says, you know what, forget it. That year sentence that I suspended because I was being so nice, you're now going to jail for a year. So she does a year in jail for shoplifting an $8 tube of mascara. Now you're thinking, okay, that's harsh, but she failed the drug test, so be it. She gets out of jail and she gets a $15,000 bill for that time in jail. And now her time with the court system is far from over because the judge schedules her to appear once a month to either make a payment on this $15,000 or go back to jail again, debtor's prison. That's literally what was happening in that county until the Missouri Supreme Court eventually stepped in 2019 and said it is illegal in the state of Missouri to put people back in jail because they can't afford to pay the bill that they got for their previous time in jail.
That's just, I mean, it's nuts.
It is. It's nuts. It's crazy. And when you come across something like this, as I did, it just changes your focus. I'm a Metro columnist. I write 4 columns a week on politics, on crime, on race, on all sorts of things. I can't get away from this topic. The reason I wrote Profit and Punishment is it's so unjust. It is so maddening. It's so obscene. And yet it exists in courtrooms all across the country.
Tell us about, you mentioned Kendi Killman. She's from Norman,
Oklahoma.
Yeah. And she, just tell her story. She was 50 years old at the time. Is that it? And so Kendi lives in Norman. She's got several children. One of her children is disabled and she has to take care of him. And so really she lives off of federal disability funding to help take care of her son, lives in public housing, has been poor her entire life. Her grandmother gets sick in Arkansas, and she and her common law husband and a couple of their kids are going to drive to go see their sick grandma. And she knows that her car isn't good enough to get her there. So she calls her ex-husband and says, hey, I know you've got a car that's good enough to get me there. Can I borrow it? He says, no, you can't borrow it, but you can buy my car for $400. Now, if you've been in poverty, you get this story, because you're constantly facing this sort of decision. Do I pay for my kids' medicine today? Do I pay my child support today? What do I need to do to get transportation to get to my job? It's constantly a Peter versus Paul, situation. So she pays for this car. They drive to Oklahoma, to Arkansas to see sick grandma. They're there a couple of days. She's getting better. They drive back. In Oklahoma, just north of where they live, they're now already back into Norman where she lives. She's just a few minutes away from home. She gets pulled over. Now, allegedly, she got pulled over because the police officer thought he saw a crack in her windshield somehow while driving next to her. That crack didn't exist. The police officer then tells her, well, you know what? I thought I saw a crack. That crack didn't exist. You weren't speeding or anything else, but can I search your car for drugs? Now, some of us who know the law and are comfortable taking on this challenge would say, no, you can't search my car for drugs. You don't have any underlying cause. And if you insist, I'm going to call my attorney and the whole problem goes away. But she's a poor person. She's tired. She wants to go home. She's like, fine, search my car. So in the trunk of this car that she's owned for less than 48 hours, they find an old pot pipe with some residue in it. Ask her if it's hers. She says no. She has no drug offenses on her in her career. She doesn't take drugs. She doesn't drink alcohol. She has a completely free, clean criminal record. But they find this pot pipe and they arrest her for possession and they take her to jail. And she's handcuffed in the jail in Norman, Oklahoma for several hours before she eventually is able to leave and given this summons to appear in court. She eventually goes to court, stands before the judge, and the first thing she does is she waives her right to a public defender. A major mistake that lots of poor people make, because she walks into court and gets this sheet of paper handed to her by a clerk that says, do you have an attorney? No. Do you want a public defender? Are you poor? Do you qualify? Yes. That'll be $40. Now, the form doesn't let her know that the judge can waive that fee, or in most states that the public defender system, if the system exists, will waive that fee. So she just says, no, I don't have $40. I waived my attorney. Now she's appearing before a judge without an attorney
pleads guilty to these two ridiculous misdemeanor charges that any attorney with, half of a law degree could probably get her out of. And the problem isn't that she's going to go to jail for these things. The problem is it comes with about $1,000 bill, because in Oklahoma, like Missouri, like South Carolina, like North Carolina, Minnesota, California, lots of other states, there are all sorts of fines and fees built into the system that have nothing to do with trying to deter her from having a pot pipe in the trunk of her car. By the way, pot's practically legal in Oklahoma right now. They approved medicinal marijuana, and that's neither here nor there, but it is kind of, we're still penalizing a lot of people for minor drug offenses all over this country while we're going through the process of legalizing that same drug. But she ends up with this $1,000 bill that she owes that she's not going to be able to pay. She doesn't have $1,000. She's not going to be able to have $100 or $200 to pay it down over the next several months. So what happens is the same thing that happens to most poor people. Eventually, she misses a payment. And when she misses a payment, a warrant is issued for her arrest. By the way, most jurisdictions, when they issue a warrant, they add another fee on top of that. They charge you money to issue a warrant. They issue a warrant. And in Kendi's case, Kendi's actually kind of lucky. She's got an older daughter who happens to get on the state's computer system and realizes, hey, there's a warrant out for your arrest. And so she goes to the judge and she stays in the courtroom for half of a day and says, hey, look, I got this warrant out for my arrest. Do you have any money to pay your bill? No. Okay, come back in another month. And this process goes on for years because she can't pay down that debt. And so she is tied to the court system until she can do something about that debt. Eventually, Aberdeen Enterprises, a private company, buys the debt. Her debt gets even higher, and they start to increase the threats until some very smart and caring defense attorneys and nonprofit civil rights organizations get involved and say, you know what, this scheme is really obscene. And it's penalizing poor people and putting many of them back in jail over and over again. And Kendi's story is not unusual. Kendi's story is the story of poor people all across this country who happen to get occasionally a traffic ticket or a minor misdemeanor for various offenses. And they end up in jail, and they end up with massive debt, and they end up having all sorts of consequences in their lives that folks like me, I'll speak for myself, folks like me, middle-class suburban white guy, generally don't have to deal with, because when I have those situations occur in my life, and they have occurred in my life, I've made mistakes in my life. I've gotten speeding tickets. I got pulled over for not having proper tags on my car. I'm able to write a check and make the whole problem go away.
Right. How much and how much of this? And because you look at three women, one in Salem, Missouri, one in Norman, Oklahoma, like Kennedy, and then the last one, Sasha Darby, in Columbia, South Carolina. How much of this is a small, rural type of phenomena? Like, is it, or is it just simply more explicit there, or what?
It's both. It's both. And I think a lot of the rural jurisdictions, it's worse. Because of just the lack of focus of the legal system on what's actually going on there, and the pressure that is.
So, in other words, there's no, the ACLU is not going to get wind of this, or there's no attorneys there who are doing, I don't know, defense attorneys who are doing pro bono actor. There's no like local college where there's a law professor or something like that.
Correct. It takes a while for these things to come sort of to the surface. Plus, you have local judges who are elected in many jurisdictions, and you have the pressure of the local sheriff and the local presiding commissioner who are trying to use the courts to raise money on them being part of this tax collection scheme. It's very much a problem that if you look at it nationally, because it happens in the cities as well. Right now, there is a bill before the New York State Senate sponsored by State Senator Julia Salazar called the End Predatory Fines and Fees Act that tries to get rid of all of these predatory fines and fees in the New York judicial system. Because what happens in a lot of America's big cities where this happens is the primary victims are people of color. Sasha Darby was in Columbia, South Carolina, not a big city, but an urban environment. She's African American. She ended up having to spend more than 20 days in jail because there was a warrant out for her arrest because she got behind on the money that she owed for a minor misdemeanor charge. And she stands before the judge and she doesn't have an attorney. And the judge says, well, you owe me $765 today. Can you pay that? And Sasha says, no, I don't have that money. That's why I missed my payment before. I'm doing the best I can. I've got a job. I've got a kid. I'm trying to take care of things, but I fell behind in those payments. And the judge says, well, you've got a choice. You can either write me a check right now for the $700 that you owe me, or I can send you to jail. And you can go to jail. You talk about a literal debtor's prison. She says, you go to jail and we'll take about $50 off a day from what you owe the court. And once you get that court debt paid off, we'll let you out of jail. That's what happened to Sasha Darby in Columbia, South Carolina. And that happens in a variety of different states. Louisiana, South Carolina, lots of southern states still have this sort of pay or stay sort of system where they say, well, you know what, they think it sounds humanitarian.
It's insane.
We know you don't have the money, so how about you just stay in our jail for a while to pay it off? Sasha Darby was pregnant when they put her in the municipal jail to pay off her debt. She lost her baby a couple of days after she gets out of jail.
It's just, it's incredibly cruel, and it's pure insanity. Is it possible for there to be federal legislation that can prevent this? I mean, on some level, it feels like the Constitution already does. It's just that, like, on the ground, it is much harder. So, like, for instance, even in the context of New York State, you pass this law, it feels like there's still local jurisdictions where this could go on. Ad infinitum unless there is like some type of, some type of apparatus that is set up, either, a governmental one or, an NGO that is going around to jurisdictions to make sure this is not happening. Because, if I'm a single mother and, I'm having to struggle to make ends meet, I probably am not aware of well, like you said with Kilman, like you should take the lawyer. They'll waive the fee. I mean, there's probably, I'm just caught up trying to do the right thing and have no idea whether I'm, in the process of like uniquely being targeted or not.
So the place to fix the problem is both in the courts and in the legislative arena. And there is a bill in Congress. Jerry Nadler from New York in the House and Brian Schatz, senator from Hawaii, have sponsored a bill that creates incentive funds for states that do what Senator Salazar is trying to do in New York, getting rid of the fines and fees. So it will create it similar to the way Congress creates incentives for creating highway safety laws. We'll give you more money for your highways if you make them safer. This is a similar sort of idea. If you get rid of your fines and fees, the federal government, hopefully, if this bill goes anywhere, will provide some federal grants to help you replace that funding for a period of time while you figure out what to do. The other way that there is progress being made is through the courts. So in Missouri and Idaho, for instance, there were class action lawsuits brought on behalf of defendants who were being put back in jail because they couldn't afford to pay their fines and fees. And in both Idaho and Missouri, two conservative states, where local circuit judges were putting poor people back in jail to collect fines and fees, the Supreme Courts in both Idaho and Missouri ruled unanimously that you can't do this. This is wrong. This is against the law. It's unconstitutional. It's debtor's prison. And so there's progress being made there in the courts. But again, that's slow. that's a year or two long case in one state and a second state. There are federal lawsuits in South Carolina and Oklahoma about these schemes. There are other lawsuits being filed by these similar organizations in a variety of places. But what you really have to do is you have to upend the entire fines and fees schemes. We have to decide as a country that we're not going to use the courts and use the police as a fundraising tool, because the result is poor people end up spending a lot of time in jail, and it has a negative impact on their communities. It has a negative impact on economies. It doesn't do anything to improve public safety. This is a problem that is so massive. It's going to take state by state legislation. I'm really hopeful that the New York bill passes. In this country, we tend to have, sort of a situation where folks in Missouri pay attention to what happens in New York and California, and hopefully eventually, they make their way to flyover land. But here it's sort of happening the opposite way too. You have Missouri and Idaho Supreme Courts recognizing that this is a problem, and hopefully more and more people starting to realize we should not be using our courts and our judges and our police and our prosecutors all as part of this process to just collect money from poor people. And to fix it, we got to have judges do the right thing. They need to have ability to pay hearings. They need to waive fees. They need to make sure that nobody's waiving the right to an attorney. Then we have to have legislatures stop adding new fines and fees on top of the ones that already exist, or go the next step further and get rid of the underlying fines and fees. There is a long process that is going to take to unravel this scheme. And in the meantime, unfortunately, a whole lot of folks are going to face, debtor's prison until we can do something to fix it.
Last question. So, it's clear. This may not even be relevant relative to what the solution is. You've walked through, exactly what needs to happen to end these practices. But from your reporting, is it your sense that this is about a way of generating revenue, or is there like some type of, this story of you owe whatever it was, $750, and I'll put you in jail for $50 a day. You'll work it off, I guess. That to me just sounds like a weird, just like some type of moral punishment for being poor. Like, is this apparatus more about punishing and policing poor people than it is ultimately about making money for the town or whatever it is?
I don't know the answer to that. In the book, I asked Jill Webb. Jill Webb is one of the attorneys, former public defender, who ended up filing the lawsuit on behalf of Kenny Kilman. And she discovered this scheme similar to me. She just was representing these folks in the public defender's office and kept finding out they had these cases where they were just in jail because they owed money. And she went to the jail one day and just started interviewing people and found out that almost everybody there was there because they owed money. And she became committed to trying to undo this scheme. And I asked her one day, I said, Jill, do they know what they're doing here? Or is this just one of these things that sort of like the boiling of the frog that takes place over a long period of time and it becomes ingrained in the system? And she said, Tony, I think a lot of the folks involved in these schemes just hate poor people. And I don't know that that's the case all over the country. I don't know that every one of the judges that I wrote about that put somebody in debtor's prison, every one of the lawmakers who passed one of these laws, I don't know that they all hate poor people, but I cover a lot of legislative movement in the country and in Missouri in particular. And there's a lot of legislation that looks at poor people like second-class citizens. And so I think that's part of the problem. I think we have a cultural problem where we don't believe that everybody's civil rights are worth the same that my civil rights are worth. somehow mine are worth more because I make more money than the person who lives a few blocks away. And so that's a complicated problem that gets beyond the Constitution and state law and appropriate actions by judges. It gets to the underlying issues that we have in our country. Do we love and care for our fellow man and believe that they have the same rights that all of us have? That's the question I ask at the end of the book, that I hope readers ultimately ask themselves: is, do the civil rights of people like Kendi Kilman and Brooke Bergen and Sasha Darby, are they worth less than your rights because they happen to be poor? And I know how I answer that question. I don't know how ultimately our state lawmakers and public officials who are going to have to fix this problem answer the question. Jill Webb seems to think that a lot of them just really don't believe that poor people should have the same rights as the rest of us. And I hope we can get beyond that as a country if that's the case.
Tony Messenger, Metro columnist for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, author of Profit and Punishment, How America Criminalizes the Poor in the Name of Justice. We'll put a link to that at majority.fm. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Really illuminating and disturbing. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, folks.
Jeez.
I mean, there's an ideology in this country that, and it's arguably capitalism, that you are morally, it's a moral failure to be poor here and in this country. I mean, and it has been one that has been, we talked about this a lot with the Republican Party. I mean, even like the Paul Ryans with their story about the brown bag.
And Trump.
Kids. And I mean, Trump is a product, a total product.
He's
of
an
that.
avatar for that.
Absolutely.
Well, in happier news, Sarah Palin has COVID.
Wasn't she bragging about not getting the vaccine the other day?
Just a reporter, because she's suing the New York Times for defamation. The judge learned last night that Sarah Palin tested positive for COVID. She is, of course, unvaccinated, the judge notes. So that spicy litigation is going to have to wait 10 or so days.
Yeah, we'll see.
As long as she's okay.
Right. Well, folks, it is your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member by going to jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you support the free show and you get the fun half. Also, Majority Live. Check it out. We got our Boston show. It's May 15th at 2 p.m. The whole crew there. And we may actually have a musical guest. Yeah.
Is it the Dropkick Murphys?
No.
I like that stuff, yeah.
Oh, my God. No.
Oh, those
maybe that'll
are the
be
guys.
my entrance music.
Good.
That's the guy, like, from the opening sequence of The Departed, right?
Yeah. Exactly, yeah.
I don't think so, dude. No. Quality. We're doing a little better than that. Also, don't forget the AM Quickie. Go to amquickie.com. You can sign up for our newsletter. People love
it's great. I think it's really well done.
Great way to keep up on the news very quickly. You read it quick. And also we have merch. So check it all out. It's your support that makes this show possible, ladies and gentlemen. Matt, what's happening in the Matt Leckian media universe?
Yeah, yesterday for Left Reckoning patrons at patreon.com/Left Reckoning, David Griscom and I released, we're starting from Marx's early writings. Now we're going to do our Marx reading series, and we did a criticism of Hegel's philosophy of right. If that sounds complicated, just know that's the one with the religion is the opiate of the masses quote. So we dig into Marx and how he was criticizing a bunch of folks early in his writing career for focusing too much on idealism of particularly religion, and that you'd actually need to think about the material underpinnings of reality. So check that out, patreon.com/Left Reckoning. We got Marshall Steinbaum talking about student loans on Wednesday.
There you go. All right, 646-257-3920 is the number. We will take your calls. See you in the fun half. left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous? You're a little bit upset? You're riled up?
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude, you want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
Some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 eighths. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance, dance, dance.
Ooh.
Rand Paul. I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agree.
No.
Death to America.
Do.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way! Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook. Throw our hands up.
Ooh.
Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey, shut up!
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
we are back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to turn the phones on. And
we have some more legal news.
We have some more legal news. This just breaking. It is Perp Walk Away Day. That's right. This is just in. Perp Walk Away Day. Pro-Trump influencer Brandon Straka. Brandon Straka walks away from his January 6th criminal case. This is Ryan J. Riley from HuffPost.
I saw that too.
With 3 months of home detention, 3 years of probation, and a measly $5,000 fine. He probably made more on that than he did. He probably made more on the YouTube he had of that. So he got off pretty good.
I just want to read some of his tweets that were found. I think he deleted these, but they were screenshots revealed that people sent to the FBI, which is funny to me a little bit. Patriots at the Capitol hold the line. I arrived at the Capitol a few hours ago as patriots were storming from all sides. I was quite close to entering myself as police began tear gassing us from the door. I inhaled tear gas and got it in my eyes. Patriots began exiting shortly after, saying Congress had been cleared. I like this one. I'm completely confused. For 6 to 8 weeks, everybody on the right has been saying 1776, and that if Congress moves forward, it will mean a revolution. So Congress moves forward. Patriots storm the Capitol. Now everyone is virtue signaling their embarrassment that this happened.
How does one virtue signal embarrassment?
Well, I think you say it was like actually not patriots, but Antifa
gotcha.
guys.
Right. Well, now he described January 6th as, quote, one of the stupidest and tragic decisions of his life. So, It's weird.
Is that virtue
Well,
signaling?
you know, to be fair, Straka has had a lot of times where he has completely reevaluated decisions he's made at different times.
One
And
would call that flipping.
Yeah,
Like a coward.
yeah. I mean, he's trying to figure it out, and but he has walked away fairly unscathed from that. That's not too bad. I'm sure not fun for him, but there it is. It is National Perp Walk a Day.
Perp walk away day.
Yes, perp walk a day. Walk away.
No.
Day.
Yeah.
There you go. Enjoy.
We should get him back on.
Calling from a 618 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Southern Illinois, Marion, Illinois. Sam, I love your show. Been watching you for a long time, but I just got to call in to tell you, man.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. What's your name?
My name is Lee.
Lee, thanks for calling. What's on your mind, Lee?
Emma's on my mind. She's always been on my mind.
Okay.
all right.
Probably the most reason why I always watch the show. I love it so much, man. I love both of you guys. But
all right. Well,
we really love you seeing Emma out and explaining and breaking things down for us, man. We really appreciate that.
Oh, well, on behalf of both of us, thank you very much. Did you have any other comment or question, or that's it?
Well, right about now, that's it. That's all's been on my mind.
All right, great.
I'm sorry.
No,
thanks, Lee. No, it's nice. That's
we love getting our egos
that's
stroked.
right.
Yes.
Positive affirmation is our love language.
Yeah,
I
mean, we're on camera. We like being told how great we are.
Only 720p, but
Kim, Emma, you look great on camera.
Okay,
Well,
all right,
good
dude.
too.
No, more.
I look pretty good too. So thanks. I appreciate it.
Sam, hey man, we love the topics that you bring in, man. Just keep pushing the people, keep pushing the progressives, keep pushing our ideas. We are behind these ideas, but we're like the people without a voice, without people like you.
All right, I appreciate it. Thanks, Lee. Thanks for the call. That was very nice.
Hey.
That was nice.
It was nice.
Feeling good. Yeah, I didn't even get complimented.
Yeah. Well, that's because you're not on camera.
Yeah, you get that on Left Reckoning. We know. Teacher Dan, describe incrementalism and any intersection/relationship it might have with the Overton window model. Would Dems refusing to attend illegitimate SCOTUS nomination hearings have been more or less performative and useless than squad members withholding Pelosi forso?
Can you repeat the first sentence again about the
votes.
Overton window model?
I can't quite make out what this means.
I know, but I just want to hear it.
Describe incrementalism and any intersection/relationship it might have with the Overton window model. Would Democrats refusing to attend illegitimate SCOTUS nomination hearings have been more or less performative and useless than squad members withholding Pelosi for Speaker of House votes? Oh, okay.
I still don't quite get it.
Would Dems, there's like a double negative here that makes it a little bit difficult to understand. Would Dems refusing to attend illegitimate SCOTUS nomination hearings have been more or less performative? Well, I think both would have been performative. I don't think the real question is it more or less performative? It's really the question is more or less useless. I think it would have been less useless. So more useful for Democrats to refuse to attend the Supreme Court hearings.
Okay.
Do we think the Overton window is useful conceptually really at all? Like, we had Democrats talking about adding Supreme Court justices during the election last year. Like, I don't know. I just haven't seen much use from the Overton window and like what cared about it does.
I mean, I do think that there is. I think there is some value to it. I mean, look, I can tell you that in 2011, even during Occupy, people were not talking about socialism. And then at one point, it becomes sort of mainstreamed to talk about socialism. The idea of expanding Social Security as opposed to cutting it. The idea of universal pre-K, like increasing, the Overton window. I mean, I think it gets overused, but I think like the idea is making things that it's really just sort of making people's, being a little bit more imaginative with what is possible.
But perhaps the fear is just that, like, when it is overused, it can be perceived as a substitute for actual wins.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
A lot of the stuff that changed that perception was, like Occupy to Bernie and all that stuff too.
Right. I don't think.
Right.
I think like I think sometimes people are aiming for the Overton window more than realizing that the Overton window is really just a way of describing what's happening.
It's something you check in with and not something you try to manipulate, I think.
Yes. Yes, I agree. But squad members withholding the Pelosi vote, like, how does that end? I mean, well, I'm not going to get into that again.
Well, we'll have time to get into that.
Probably. Dave Parrott. Sam, what are your thoughts on RFK Jr. speaking an anti-vax book? I'm flabbergasted. Thanks. Similar. My feelings are it's sad and it's disturbing. I at one point, years ago. Look, Bobby has always had an issue with vaccinations, and in the early aughts, there was, I think, a legitimate concern about thimerosal. There was a rise in reported autism, which I think probably ultimately was attributable to people having a better awareness of what autism is. But there was a suspicion that maybe thimerosal was was implicated. And what happened is they started removing thimerosal from most vaccines. And we did not see any type of corresponding drop in the incidence of autism. And there's some indication that maybe there's some environmental issues in terms of creating autism. I just don't know. But I do know that because that was something in 2004 that we were watching, because it was around that time that thimerosal was dropped from most vaccines. And I've had this conversation with Bobby probably, I don't know, maybe close to 10 years ago now. And maybe it was 8 years. I can't remember exactly when it was. And I said, but, and I think it was his position maybe that they actually hadn't taken it out. And I'm like, well, I don't understand. If that's the case, why wouldn't a doctor simply say, I'm going to pay $400, send out these samples of the flu vaccine that I've gotten, and have a lab analyze it to see if there's thimerosal in there. And at one point, Bobby believes this. That's the only thing I can tell you. He believes it. I don't know that his beliefs are founded. I happen to believe that they're not. But I know that he believes them. And he certainly thought that this was going to destroy his career. That's what he articulated to me. But he genuinely believed it. And I think... I have some theories as to why, but nothing is more than a theory. But it's really distressing. It's really distressing.
That thing about the rising autism rates and it being down to basically it easier to report, sort of, or reporting standards being updated, or that's a very important lesson just generally for the Ben Shapiro facts don't care about your feelings, and a fact is a fact, right? Because you see a similar thing happen with a lot of these people that are fear mongering about ooh, look at these Muslim immigrants coming to Europe, and all of a sudden rapes started increasing. But it just turned out that those countries were doing a lot better at reporting rapes, which we don't do well at this country, for instance.
Right. The existence of something and the assessment of the existence of something are not the same things.
Exactly.
Well, it's the difference between causation and correlation.
Right. Barry M. Cochner.
I don't even get that one.
I'm not even sure if it's. I can't tell. But
very crude.
Emma, what's your take on the NFL overtime rules from a heartbroken Bills
I'm
mom?
so sorry. I mean, I don't think it's right. Like, I understand in the postseason the rule is that if you score a field goal, then the other team who didn't win the coin toss has an opportunity to score as well. But if you score a touchdown, there's the opposing team doesn't have an opportunity. I think that gives too much power to the coin toss, because whoever won the coin toss in that game was going to win. And I don't think that that's how a postseason game should be determined. I understand in the regular season, I guess, for, like to ensure that there are fewer ties, I guess. But yeah, I just don't think it was fair to Bills fans. I think it should be changed. But the flip side is people go, well, then just play defense.
That's boring.
That's boring.
They should do the thing where you have to get in from the 20-yard line and just go back and forth with the offenses.
I think that's an XFL experiment or something that they did in the
Didn't
past.
college do something like that too? I don't know how these rules go, but yeah, like the coin toss is always stupid.
Yeah.
Sam's Zoom face filter. Release the high-definition stream or I'm contacting the Better Business Bureau. Clown Shoe Mike. Balloon knot. Yes.
Yeah, we remember. I'll never forget that.
I also sent that before the interview, which now seems in poor taste. Our system is rotten to the core. Oh, okay. Farming on. Have you heard about a group of at-will healthcare employees in Wisconsin involved in a lawsuit for leaving for jobs that paid better? We have to remember we are only at-will workers when that means an employer can fire us at any time. I hadn't heard about that.
Do we want to return to the fact that you called St. Louis St. Louis?
I know I did that. I couldn't help it.
People said you sound like a riverboat gambler.
I know. Are you Judy Garland?
I don't know. I don't know what happened there. I honestly don't. About to give up. Fun weekend for Wisconsin. Not only did the Packers choke, but a judge here put an injunction on nurses from leaving their jobs until their employer can replace them in an at-will state. Oh my God. That's just nuts. Also, Republicans in our state house proposed lowering the concealed carrying age from 21 to 18 and allowing 18-year-old high schoolers to carry a concealed firearm in school. So much fun. Might move north to Canada. Green New Deal now. Is Taiwan a country or rebellious province of China? I mean, that's the issue, right? Out Testamania. Hey, MR crew, it's my 44th birthday, but I'd also like a shofar for my daughter, Sunny Aloha, who went back to school today for the first time in 2 years.
Wow.
She's in 2nd grade. My spouse and I sacrificed a lot to homeschool her until she could get vaxxed. My parents even moved across the country to help us. Like to think we did our part, even if it was just keeping schools from overcrowding. Thanks for the show. Well, congratulations to both of you. I don't know about who the U.S. is funding, but I do know that Canadian money and training has gone into the Nazi groups in the Ukrainian military, probably something that is also important to remember. 101 Lawn Gnomes. Really like how these ad reads get combined. Hello, Sunset, Tushy Lake. Just say bidet. Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. AOC for the win. Loved your interview with Ilhan Omar. She is so honest and blunt, but with enough moderation to not get into any trouble. Do you know why AOC doesn't do any interviews or progressive shows like yours? She only comes on mainstream media, Instagram Live. You asked this question on Friday, and we answered it. She came onto the program. I mean,
when I was at TYT, she came on many times. We did in-person stuff. We did virtual stuff. I
think people go through waves where they're like, well, I'm going to do this type of media. I'm going to do that type of media. I mean, I think it's also just, a matter of time, I would imagine. That story's nuts. We'll talk about that tomorrow. That's just absolutely out of control. The Wisconsin one, completely effing nuts. Let's go to a 405 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, how's it going? My name's Andrew. Calling from St. Louis, actually.
I think you mean St. Louis.
About 150 years too late.
All right. Well, there you go. All right.
Yeah, so thanks for taking my call. I actually worked for an organization that we did the lawsuit that originally sued Ferguson and Jennings, two of the municipalities in North County that Tony was talking about, and just wanted to see if I could add something. And I apologize in advance because I didn't get the last 10 minutes of his interview, so if he talked about this, sorry. But one of the real... is it okay if I talk about that?
Yeah, sure.
So one of the insidious ways that they were able to get away with this for so long without attorneys or people with money finding out, which was actually important because once it was actually revealed, even the most conservative county residents weren't okay with this happening. And they, I can't say intentionally, but did everything possible to set up this system to where nobody would actually see it unless you're poor. So when I moved to St. Louis for law school, the third day I was in St. Louis, went out with some alum attorneys who the first thing they told me basically was if you're an attorney in St. Louis, you never have to pay speeding tickets or go to municipal court. And they actually gave me a business card and told me, you're a law student. If you ever get a ticket, just call me. And so if you're an attorney in Missouri, you can basically enter on a case and avoid this entire system and never have to show up and actually see it in place. And then if you have money and can hire an attorney, they can actually just do everything by mail for you most of the time. And even if they ever have to appear in these municipal courts and see it, the lines, things like that, there's almost always either a separate entrance for attorneys to go through, or they can just cut the line and go straight to the front. And so they were able to get away for years with people, granted, should have looked into it, but having a legitimate claim to having no idea what was going on. So I thought it was just important to point out the ways that they're actually able to get away with this.
Wow, that's nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow. Well, I don't. He did not cover that, but appreciate the call.
Oh, thank you. Can I ask Emma one question real quick, and I promise it won't take long?
Sure.
Yeah.
So it's sports related, and my best friend asked me to ask you this if I got on.
Okay.
What do you think would happen if Rodgers left Green Bay and Tom Brady, to prove that he was better than Aaron Rodgers, went to Green Bay on a cheap one-year contract and used that money to hire receivers and the pieces that they need and won a Super Bowl at Green Bay and proved definitively that he was better than Aaron Rodgers?
Well,
Thanks.
But that wouldn't be definitively proving it, because then he'd have the receivers that Aaron, the issue is that it happens every year. They double Devontae Adams in the playoffs. This is what happens. Again, Aaron Rodgers is really, I can't root for him anymore, but I think it's just ridiculous that, this happens every year. MVPs never win the Super Bowl because they have to do too much for their team, and that's why he lost in the first round.
Appreciate the call.
But that is a funny thought experiment. I think there's a chance Rodgers goes to Pittsburgh.
Ooh. Gravy writes in, I couldn't help but notice AOC is not on the program today. What's the deal? Oh, God.
Fucking sell out.
Let's go.
We have to do Tucker.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, folks. It's, this is when things get a little bit slow. And hopefully we'll get Preen on Friday to talk about sort of the culture war that really is COVID. And it really is a culture war by another name. And you can see it as the way it's waged. And it involves a lot of straw men. And it involves a lot of things that people don't really think is important until all of a sudden it gets, sort of put into the culture war machine. And here's Tucker Carlson with the latest salvo on in the culture war, I know this is something that's been on a lot of people's minds.
Oh, yeah.
The hard shell around certain chocolate candies.
Finally tonight, we don't usually give story tips to NPR, but here's a story they might want to cover pretty soon and doubtless will. M&M's, the candy company, has just announced that it's redesigning its cartoon characters to be more gender inclusive. Bet you didn't think M&Ms were pushing intolerance, but they were. They've been changed. You're seeing the changes right now on your screen. The green M&M, you will notice, is no longer wearing sexy boots. Now she's wearing sensible sneakers. Why the change? Well, according to M&M's, quote, we all win when we see more women in leading roles because leading women do not wear sexy boots. Leading women wear frumpy shoes. The frumpier the better. That's the rule. The other big change is that the brown M&M has, quote, transitioned from high stilettos to lower block heels. Also less sexy. That's progress. M&Ms will not be satisfied until every last cartoon character is deeply unappealing and totally androgynous. Until the moment you wouldn't want to have a drink with any one of them. That's the goal. When you're totally turned off, we've achieved equity. Phase one. Meanwhile, in a nod to the burgeoning...
Wait a second. Whoa. Stop. At what point did Tucker start to opine there? Because like I got a lot of was there ever a point where Tucker was like, I really want to copulate with that M&M?
I should get a little something from the commercials. If I have to suffer through ads, break me off a piece.
Break me off a piece of that ass right now. Why
if I'm gonna get off on a M&M, I need stilettos.
I mean, can we give her some thigh highs too? Why stop at the?
Where's her bustier?
I mean, first off, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard from M&Ms. Like, I can't even tell the difference between they've switched from boots to sneakers. Like, okay, people are more casual.
Progress.
But
heels are the patriarchy. I don't want that shit anymore. I for one.
Well, some are lower heels.
Thrilled.
But
hate heels.
Like what? Like this is. I mean, God. All right, go back a little bit because I want to see like how titillated Tucker used to be by these M&Ms.
I can't believe he admitted he wants to fuck the M&M.
I mean,
this was like when the new Lola Bunny came out, and everyone's like, they made her boobs and ass smaller, and it's like they didn't really.
I'm like staring at these M&Ms, going like, wait, what's the difference? Oh, sneakers. Oh, God darn it. I'm not gonna.
Also, you know when Eminem was like making this thing, there's probably 1 in 10 chance that they thought like maybe we can get Tucker to get really upset about this and air it.
I'm sure on some level that's probably like what.
It makes me want some M&Ms.
Our data shows that more people are wearing sneakers. That you know. Girls and women and people in general. I mean, I would imagine less men wear shoes and more wearing like sort of sneakers. So let's just casualize them. Yes, but how can we draw some effing moron in to do our publicity work for us? I know. Let's just say that we're trying to make it more gender inclusive. Okay, Tucker will probably bite on that. It's too bad, maybe we could even get Bill O'Reilly to opine on it as well.
I think the green M&M should still be dressed like a flapper like she originally was. And
is that
I'm joking.
Who knows like this stuff? It's just so... All right, go back a little bit. I just want to see like if Tucker is just sort of like how frothy he is about this.
Is that the brown M&M has, quote, transitioned from high stilettos to lower block heels.
Pause it.
That's progress.
They didn't say like transitioned.
Yeah.
From.
Well, no, it is.
He just added that.
It's a quote.
Also, the glasses are different. Is there
No,
anything...
transitioned from high stilettos to lower block heels.
Yes.
But he said transitioned.
As in their gender?
No. Yeah, like he's trying to make it as opposed to like, he's trying to make it seem like they're transitioning. That's why he put the word transition in quotes, not from high stilettos to lower block heels.
Absolutely.
They could have been like, that she's changed from high stilettos to lower block heels. But he is the one who isolated transition to make this, to shove this into some type of gendered story for him.
M&Ms will not be satisfied until every last cartoon character is deeply unappealing
Wait,
and
pause
totally
it. M&Ms won't be satisfied, and,
yes.
and neither will I anymore.
We're talking about the motivations of a corporation. We're talking about we're not satisfied until you are completely soft. When you're watching.
I can tell you this right now. I can tell you this right now, that I will not be satisfied until Candy is androgynous. I do not think that Candy figures, okay? Like, there's no gender to candies.
M&M's was like, too many people are getting aroused by the M&M's. We want them to eat the candy, not the candy.
Exactly. Remember sex sells? Like now the corporation's like, no, we did a terrible mistake when we did that.
People were putting their, were sticking their dicks in the candy wrappers. Oh my God.
The moment you wouldn't want to have a drink with any one of them. That's the goal.
Who wants to have a drink with a candy?
We've achieved equity. They've won.
They've won.
Meanwhile, in a nod to the burgeoning wellness movement, the orange M&M will, quote, acknowledge and embrace his anxiety. And actually, if you look at him, the orange M&M does appear very anxious. Maybe he doesn't like all the ugly new shoes he sees around him. Maybe he liked the sexy boots. Maybe the orange M&M is a secret sexist himself. We don't know. We're going to let NPR get to the bottom of that.
What?
I love how they made it all about like NPR is going to do a story on this. Hey, dude, you just did the story. You're the one doing the story. It's just insane. The guy's like just a carnival barker.
The orange M&M is like freaked out and anxious because guys like Tucker Carlson want to have sex with his friends. Guys, we're candy. Stop wanting to have sex with us.
Trying to have sex with us?
It's so funny the way like this guy, called a socialist, tries to define the motivations of a major corporation. Another thing you could criticize M&M's or the parent company Mars for is, this is from Friday, February 12th. Mars, Nestle, and Hershey to face child slavery lawsuit in the U.S. Chocolate companies are among the defendants named in a lawsuit brought by former child workers in the Ivory Coast. Now, maybe Tucker got to that after the going on and on about the stilettos.
Wasn't that the one that Neil Katyal defended them in the Supreme Court?
I think so. Yeah. Let's see. Neil Katyal.
Was that the one? I can't remember. I like Bill O'Reilly probably did a story about the M&Ms being too sexy.
Yeah,
and
what's
then
that one?
Tucker comes in and goes, "They're not sexy enough."
What would Tucker should mock up what he thinks the M&M should look like. That would make him happy.
Yeah.
But that they are also like saying like, well, this story was sort of tongue in cheek.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Tucker on the low writes M&M fanfic.
Also, none of the male M&Ms would I want to have drinks with either. Like, these aren't people you want to like.
I don't want to have drinks. I don't have drinks with a Keebler Elf. I don't have drinks with any animated character.
What about Tony the Tiger? What about Tony the Tiger?
Kool-Aid
Come
Man.
on. The Cheeto Cheetah, right? He's sexy.
He's cool, yeah.
Damn.
Probably buy you some cigarettes too.
Can't even watch those commercials.
Calling from a 424 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Hank in Los Angeles.
Hank in Los Angeles. What's on your mind?
Hey, Sam. Good to talk to you guys. I watch the show for Matt Leck. I just love when he's on camera.
No, I get it. I get it. You don't have to say.
He's no Eminem.
That's unsaid. That's unsaid.
So he wears those hats.
Yeah.
It's irresistible. Hey, long-time listener, first-time caller. I've been a woodworker for several months, Sam.
Ooh.
And I know that's one of your hobbies.
Yeah.
So I'm calling to do a little woodworking talk.
Okay.
with you?
Sure.
Great. I make like fancy cutting boards and stuff. Basically, it's a professional shop, and it's been a long time hobby of mine. Been learning a lot, and I just have some, been sanding. I'm a professional sander, is what I do.
All right.
So,
well, I have a question for you though. What are you treating those blocks with? Because I'm always fascinated by what people, every person I have ever spoken to who makes like a cutting board says that they treat their cutting board with something different. What do you treat yours with?
All right, we have a thing. It's called craft oil. I'm not sure if you can get it on the retail market or not, but it's a food safe oil stain. It's actually the one we use. It's very easy to apply. You just wipe it on and wipe it off. It absorbs. You gotta let it dry, and then we apply a wax finish coating, which is fairly common.
Like a beeswax, right?
Yeah, it's a combination beeswax, mineral oil, and paste wax, I believe.
Right.
And the mineral oil is just a vessel for diluting the wax, and the mineral oil will then basically evaporate, as far as I understand it. I'm kind of new to the whole thing. So
what is it? Craft? What is it called? Craft oil. Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm not confident that. Yeah, I've never even Googled it. I don't know if that. It seems to be great stuff. I've used boiled linseed oil myself in some of my own projects before I started working at this place. So, but yeah, it's something you should care about, because you don't want to put a chemical on the thing that you're going to prepare food on.
Of course, so it's usually mineral oil and beeswax is what I usually get.
Yeah. That's generally the finish, and it gives you a nice matte finish, and it's also replaceable. Like, you can fix it up after some time if you use it, and you can sand it down and then fix it up. It's a fun project, and then you'll have a whole bunch of extra wax laying around, and you'll start waxing everything. You'll just start rubbing that crap on your cabinets, and because it's pretty fun and easy to do when you get to that point. Yeah. So I'm just curious, what do you do? Kind of like DIY home building stuff, or are you making like bespoke little items for
cabinets?
What's your
more like cabinets?
All right.
and stuff like that. And sometimes I try to make a bowl or two, something like that.
Oh, good. It's tricky, isn't it?
That's tricky. I'm not so handy with a router.
Oh man, be careful with those things. You got to wear your eye protection.
Oh yeah, I always do.
I don't want to take up too much time, so I was going to share some safety tips, or just at least regarding eye protection.
Okay.
I was I was returning a lid to a can of some schmutz. I don't know what. I don't remember. We're always opening, tight lids and then hammering them back. And I decided to use a little piece of scrap from the garbage. It was the closest hard thing near me, and I was just hammering away on it. And all of a sudden, I felt a small piece of wood bounce off my eyeball.
Oy.
It launched right up. It just hit the eyeball, like just right into it. I felt a little tickle of something for like a day after that, but I dodged it. I dodged a bullet very, very luckily. It kind of just barely touched, but I didn't have my glasses on, and I usually do, and they were on my hat.
I always have my glasses on.
What a reminder
because I can't see without them, so I have that covered. And then sometimes I'll wear goggles if I'm doing, something else. And I also wear a mask when I'm sanding.
Super important. Yeah, you should. You definitely should. That dust will get in there, and then there's no getting out.
Yep.
It's that's good stuff.
All right. Appreciate the call.
That's you guys doing great. Yeah, Thanks. I'll call back. We'll talk woodworking if that's cool with you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Find out what that craft oil is.
Hell yeah.
It's a trade secret.
Yeah,
they won't tell about it. They're very, very quiet about that. Josh from Tucson, when are you going to buy a lathe, Sam? It's not happening for a while. What should we do here?
I forgot to turn my camera on.
Oh, all right. So, should we do? Let's do 3, and then we'll do 4.
Okay.
Bernie Sanders was on Dana Bash's show, State of the Union, and it feels like I don't know if they, Sanders was looking at this bill, the Build Back Better bill, the original one, as being, I think, a capstone to his career. And it would have been. It would have been, I don't know if you could call it transformative, but it would have been a significant change in the way that the government, the relationship between government and citizens in many respects. Because it would have, like, said, there are certain things that you can expect from the government to help provide for you. And I don't know if the Biden administration sends him out in this instance, or he does this on his own, or, other groups, or, but here he is on with Dana Bash. Clip number 3.
Would you be willing to campaign against either Senator Sinema and or Senator Manchin in a Democratic primary?
Well, that's a long way coming. They're not up until 2024. But if there were strong candidates in those states who were prepared to stand up for working families, who understand that the Democratic Party has got to be the party of working people taking on big money interests, if those candidates were there in Arizona and West Virginia, yes, I would be happy to support them.
Okay, let's go back to the notion of how you're going to do what President Biden talked about, passing what he called big chunks.
And he also said, let's play number 2, too. We'll play number 2.
How frustrated are you?
Well, it's not only those two. It is 50 Republicans who have been adamant not only in pushing an anti-democratic agenda, but also opposing our efforts to try to lower the cost of prescription drugs, trying to expand Medicare to include dental, hearing, and eyeglasses, to improve the disastrous situation in home health care, in child care, to address the existential threat of climate change. You got 50 Republicans who don't want to do anything except criticize the president. And then you have, sadly enough, 2 Democrats who choose to work with the Republicans rather than the president, and who have sabotaged the president's effort to address the needs of working families in this country. Is it frustrating? It sure is. But my view, Dana, is we need a new direction, a new approach in the Senate. I think after 6 months of negotiating, so-called negotiating behind closed doors with Senators Manchin and Senator Sinema, we need to start voting. We need to bring important pieces of legislation that impact the lives of working families right onto the floor of the Senate. And if the Republicans want to vote against lowering the cost of prescription drugs, climate change, home health care, whatever it may be, and if the Democrats, 2 Democrats want to join them, let the American people see what's happening. Then we can pick up the pieces and pass legislation.
So I want to.
I mean, there is, I think that's all you have left at this point. And the idea is to show, and I don't know, frankly, how effective this is, but I'm not sure what else there is for them to do in the Senate, aside from, confirming judges, which I think will actually have more material value. And I guess for individual candidates, it will help to make individual candidates up for re-election in 22 take tougher votes, maybe. And I don't know who that would be necessarily. Maybe Ron Johnson. You make him vote against specific things. I mean, I would like to see things that were a little bit more targeted if you're going to do that strategy, because that's maybe all you have left. You come up with 6 bills, and one that is designed to make Ron Johnson take a rough vote, one that's designed to who else would be up for re-election? A couple others, maybe. I mean, that would put pressure on them specifically. But
I think giving up on one reconciliation bill is a mistake, though. I mean, there's nothing will get passed outside of reconciliation. Nothing.
Yes, it's not clear what can get passed in reconciliation either until Joe Manchin decides what it is that he wants or not. But we shall see. Meanwhile, here is Elise Slotkin in the House. She's on with Chuck Todd on Sunday, and Kristen Sinema was formally censured by the Arizona Democratic Party
for her filibuster.
For her filibuster vote.
There seems to be a lot of public highlighting of Democratic division.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier. You weren't crazy about having to air some of this dirty laundry, but it's happening. What's happening to Senator Sinema is this healthy for the party? Having a state party, her own state party, censure her. Like I said, most people will look at what they're censuring her over is over a disagreement on tactics, not on the issue.
Yeah, I just don't come from a school where you're constantly airing dirty laundry. Like, there are really big divisions.
What school does she come from?
Yeah, she comes from a different kind of school. She comes from a school in which the dirty laundry is used as blackmail as a part of a CIA operation.
If you air the dirty laundry, we're going to try to arrest you and imprison you and maybe torture you for like several years.
I hoard the dirty laundry in order to maintain U.S. empire. I guess.
Right. You use dirty laundry as leverage.
Please.
You don't
air it out.
Don't air it out. I mean, this is free. Like what? It also implies like there's stuff like, backroom stuff. Like Kristen Sinema always comes in and she always brings tuna fish into the caucus meetings and it really smells. You shouldn't talk about that in public. No, she is thwarting the entire Democratic agenda. This is the Democratic Party, and particularly the state party in this instance, which is completely autonomous, disciplining their representative. And they should be doing this.
Yeah, I don't understand why a representative from Michigan even has a comment on this. But I guess this is also like a way to, I mean, does she mention Bernie later in the clip? Because this is also about Bernie Sanders criticizing.
I got news for Elise Slotkin. When she comes and comments about what's going on in the Arizona Democratic Party, she's the one who's airing dirty laundry.
Right.
But
they're keeping it in-house. Literally, pretty much.
Censuring her over a disagreement on tactics, not on the issue.
Yeah, I just don't come from a school where you're constantly airing dirty laundry. Like, there are really big divisions in Washington right now, period. Democrat, Republican, within each party. But I just don't believe that the way that you get back at other people is by putting that on air, airing that publicly. So I don't love that.
Way you get back
I
at
also
other people.
don't think that, if we disagree with someone, that's a normal part of governing. People just want people to be responsible. So I don't love it. But I also, that's not what people in my district are worrying about right now.
Do you question the motives of Senators Manchin and Sinema for their disagreements on this?
I don't. I think someone once told me when I started Congress, you can question someone's policy choices. Don't question their motives, because we're all here, I hope, to do the right thing, or we should be.
I hope? Why does she say I hope?
Yeah,
What do you mean? You hope? You mean you suspect that maybe not?
Not questioning someone's motives maintains power. Right. It allows. Let's uphold the fairy tale of our American democracy, and that's useful for someone like Slotkin.
And of course, Chuck Todd's going to be there to help her spread that message.
Oh
It's
my
like,
God! The most leading question of all, like I've ever heard in my life.
They disagree about tactics, but not the issue. Like, maybe the disagreement about tactics is actually like a smokescreen for an actual disagreement on the issue.
No. Newsflash, the tactics are the issue here. The tactics, because Sinema says in theory she supports voting rights, but she doesn't support the filibuster carve-out to get there. That's not a disagreement on, that's not just a tactical how do we get there disagreement. That is the only path to get there.
Right, exactly.
So if she doesn't agree with it, then she doesn't actually agree with the voting rights legislation.
Give another tactic.
Like, I agree with 3 pointers.
Yeah, I mean, if it's an argument over tactics, there should be 2 tactics on the floor, right, that they're debating. One is you carve out the filibuster. The other is what? Like, we wait for aliens to come down?
What were you saying that you disagree with?
I was just going to make a sports metaphor. Like, I agree with 3 pointers, but not shooting the ball so far away from the hoop like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Not good for the game.
Really, and actually, there is the fact of the matter is getting rid of the filibuster is also sort of not. It's not so much tactical as it is also, a problem with democracy. Like you could say theoretically, like voting rights, is that an issue or is that more like a tactical? Like it's a way to get people to be able to vote. Oh, he's horrible.
He is horrible. Wait, damn, we're gonna take a cut on that.
What's
Cut out that Comcast money now, but
Comcast money's just down to a dribble now. I don't know, what else should we play here? Do we dare do this Nick Fuentes thing?
I'd rather know. Fuentes we can ignore.
Let's just do the Nick Fuentes thing. Okay. Because this is sort of funny, and then I'm sorry, and then we'll do you want to do the Kristi Noem one?
Yeah, I mean,
let's do the Fuentes, and then we'll do the Kristi Noem. We got plenty of time. So here's Nick Fuentes. Now
Bradley's preemptively giggling about this clip.
Well, let's watch the clip, and I'll tell you. Well, let's watch the clip, and then we'll talk about an interesting email I received.
Ooh.
Yeah, some time ago, actually.
We're gonna go there.
I'm not gonna talk specifically about it, but
because we don't air dirty laundry at this school.
Right, we don't air dirty laundry.
What part of what you know about me would make you think that I would want to be propositioned by a woman? much less in the super chats, no less. What part of you, or what part of me would make you think that I would want a girl to say, to ask me out on a date?
Oh, wait.
I'm not going to be asked out. I will do the asking out.
Oh,
it's that.
People look at me and they think,
pause
like,
it. It's interesting.
Oh, he's
pause
like,
it. Pause it. That's interesting, because I was like, huh.
I was interpreting that differently.
I thought,
I was like, is he owning up to maybe some feelings he has inside? I don't know.
That's a question. It's like it sounded like he was about to reveal something.
Yeah.
About himself, and what it ultimately was that no, he wants to be doing the asking. Does he say to whom? This is an interesting dynamic that's going on.
To the woman in the super chat who asked him out, and it's very offensive to him that a woman would express her desires. It has to only come from the man.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, pop up.
I'm not going to be asked out. I will do the asking out. You know, people look at me and they think like, oh, he's like this Alex P. Keaton, like goody two-shoes, wholesome Chungus 10,000. It's like, nah, I'm a little bit more complicated than like wanting a girl in a sundress to just lay my suits out and I wear a fedora and smoke a pipe and go, hey, honey, we're LARPing like it's the 1950s. Like, that's just so insulting. I have a little bit, it's called depth, okay? It's called depth. I have a little bit more depth to my character than just I'm some kind of like sitcom character. I'm sort of playing an important role in world history here, and the idea that, you know, some silly girl online, like I'm gonna be in direct messages just sort of being like funny and flirty and fun. It's not me. It's just not gonna happen. Like I said, I'm trying to think of a scenario where it would be acceptable, because some people say, oh, well, that means you're gay. And it's like, well, no, because it's not that, it's more the setting there. Because there's a few scenarios where it would be acceptable. Like I said, you know, if it was a girl who was working for me, you know, like Hitler in that movie Downfall, when he's like interviewing secretaries, like that's a setting where it like makes a little bit more sense.
What? Because
well, I might need to go watch Downfall again and figure out what
I'm not sure exactly.
I'm glad he's identifying with Hitler there.
I think, yeah, you can maybe read into that too.
Now look, we get emails from time to time from people, and sometimes you get emails from people who purport to know other people, who go to great lengths to establish their knowledge of the other person. Like, I don't know, here's a note I got from this person. Here's an example of their handwriting that is publicly available. Here's the picture of the note. I had this type of relationship or that type of relationship with somebody. And then you get these emails and you're like, what am I going to do with this? And then you think, probably nothing. But maybe you wait and see, like, do I deploy this email, this information and stuff like this at a time like maybe where if this guy is being particularly hypocritical on certain issues? I don't think that in this instance we've achieved that.
Also, just to catch people up, when he said Alex P. Keaton, that is a character from the TV show. I'm looking at my notes. Family Ties.
Wait, are you serious?
1982 to 1989.
Are you serious? You had to see that?
I had to look that up.
So that's people used to mock me for being Alex P. Keaton back in high school. Yeah, it was Michael J. Fox, and he always wore sweater vests.
I think that got replaced by Doogie Howser.
No. That's a different idea. The thing is, Alex P. Keaton was a right winger. And but even back then, like,
it's like Tim Heidecker's doing that now.
Yes, a little bit of that. But it was also like the idea was that his parents were hippies. And they were sort of like now turning into like they're post hippies, and he was rebelling against them and was like a big fan of Reagan. And now the funny part is, like, in high school, like nobody was like even that conscious of politics enough to say like that you like.
Was this just like a flip on All in the Family?
I mean, sort of a little bit. I mean, there was a little bit of quality of that. And
so what was it about you that they
just that I wore sweater vests?
Oh,
because I dressed like that, and I was like, it was more like for them it was like you're a nerd.
So wait, what are we just? So nothing's being deployed?
No, that was it.
Okay.
That was it. I just found that interesting to watch people, talk around stuff.
Why he can't? Yeah. Why? Yeah.
Let's go to.
You start rambling about downfall.
Yeah, weird.
Something might be going on.
Such specific settings for him to be able to have a relationship with a woman.
All right, now there's a lot of stuff going on right now. Where is, this is in Virginia, right? There's a lot of stuff heating up in Virginia right now. You've got, I think it's 7 school districts that are suing the state because Youngkin has disallowed mask mandates by schools. However, the Virginia charter, it's a commonwealth, allows a lot of power for local school districts. And so they're arguing that you need to allow us to impose these mandates. And this gives you a sense of like what's going on in Virginia right now.
No mask mandates. My children will not come to school on Monday with a mask on. All right? That's not happening. And I will bring every single gun loaded and ready to, I will call every...
That's 3 minutes. You've gone past your time. It's a policy. Thank you.
I'll see y'all on Monday.
So that's a threat.
Apparently, and I don't know what has happened, but my understanding is that you're going to have a lot of parents show up with their kids and force their kids in. This is just insanity. This is just insanity. This is like, the ability of the right to create culture wars over this type of stuff is stunning. I mean, it really is. There is a significant amount of evidence that masking inhibits the spread of COVID in schools. That if you want to keep schools open, you got to take as many precautions as you can. You cannot pretend that COVID doesn't exist. It's not going to go away just because you ignore it.
There's a new study from the University of Michigan. This is reported out by ABC 12 News. But virus spread was 62% higher in school districts without mask rules, where the infection rate averaged 73 cases per 100,000 students by late September. So,
I mean, there it is.
Surprise.
And you could say, well, it doesn't impact kids at all. Which is not true.
It's not true. All the right wingers terrified of myocarditis from the vaccine. Newsflash: if you get COVID, your child is much more likely, I should say. We don't much might be pushing it, but definitely more likely to get myocarditis.
And exactly. Not to mention like other things we're not sure what this does to us.
Yeah, including some data showing that it could potentially increase the rates of type 1 and type 2 diabetes in children. The CDC's looking into that. And the long effects of COVID. Long COVID is very, very real. And there are people who have experienced mental health issues from long COVID, and children are not immune from that. That's just not true.
It's just sheer insanity. I just don't understand, like, what people. I guess
they're just projecting. I mean,
they are. And when they say child abuse, like the thing is when a parent like that says it's child abuse for kids to have to wear masks, what they're saying is it's child abuse for society to inform my child that their parent is a big galloping idiot that has been misled by venal morons.
I love your use of galloping.
I know. I'm reading a lot of Civil War stuff.
Let's do this Kristi Noem thing, shall we? Here is, good for Fox's Shannon Beam to remind people that the majority of this country want a woman to have the right to choose whether she will continue with a pregnancy, have some sovereignty over her own body. Here is Kristi Noem on Fox News this Sunday.
You've made clear you're among those who would like to see Roe struck down. Well, our brand new Fox News polling shows us this. When asked about that, 63% say let it stand, 31% say it's time to overturn it. Are you out of step with the American people on this?
No, in fact, 71% of Americans believe there should be some reasonable restrictions on abortions. You know, when I ran for governor, I talked about being the most pro-life governor.
Already is one. There is the viability standard that has been in place for many, many decades at this point. So.
Yes, there are reasonable and unreasonable restrictions on abortion, actually, that are ongoing. But she really did pivot nicely off of that. I'm going to ignore the question. Roe v. Wade, stand, yes or no? Let me answer a third question that's being asked in a parallel universe. Go ahead.
In the country. Science has proven to us that life begins at conception, and the bill that I'm bringing this year to our legislature says that when a heartbeat is detected, that then abortions should not be an option for people, that we need to protect those babies. And Shannon, I think what's interesting in South Dakota is that we've proven this issue doesn't have to be divisive. Last year I brought a bill that protected babies upon the diagnosis of Down syndrome, and it unanimously passed my legislature. Republicans and Democrats together believe that when parents get that diagnosis of Down syndrome, that babies shouldn't be aborted just because of that diagnosis.
So the bill that...
Are you serious? I don't want to... If a family does not have the financial means to support a child with Down syndrome, the family and the mother should not have a child with Down syndrome, right? That's difficult. That's a difficult thing for a family sometimes to have to go through. And you should give us, that is rarely disgusting.
I mean, look, the bottom line is women should have the right to terminate a pregnancy, period. It is not a baby. If she wants to talk about scientists will tell you it is an embryo Or is it a fetus? It is
Science-
not a baby.
No, science says life begins at
Science has
conception.
proven to us that that's not how science works. Science doesn't prove to certain people certain things. The point is, like, it's reproducible to everybody. That's kind of a scientific, method.
But I mean, at least good for Fox's Shannon Beam for actually daring to announce the results of its own poll.
That framing is not what I would expect.
I know, and the Chiron kept it up, 63%. I mean,
and that's going to be a big deal because we are probably 6 months away from Roe v. Wade, at least in part, being overturned by the Supreme Court. At least in part. Maybe more. I mean, talking about 6-3 might be tougher for John Roberts to sort of like slow the roll of this thing. We'll see. Going back to the phones, calling from a 308 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 308? What happened? I hit it. Did we lose them? Wah, wah, wah. All right, I'll take the next call. Calling from a 913 area code. Did I hit the wrong button? 913.
Hello?
Hello? Who's this?
David from Kansas City.
David from Kansas City. You working in a factory, David?
Yeah, sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, God, your conversation's been so distracting. But yeah, I live in Missouri, and the guy talking about the predatory loans or fines and fees and stuff like that, pretty disturbing. And I was going to just make one quick comment, but even when I was a kid, I'm from Kansas City, so like it's a pretty big metro area on the Missouri side and Kansas side. And there's big divisions in wealth here still. And when I was younger, my dad told me if you're driving through certain parts of town, you're more likely to get pulled over if you have a shitty car, which I did growing up. And it's sort of like a weird class predatory move, and you're going to pull someone over that has a shitty car because they're in like a wealthy part of town. Pretty disgusting. Because first of all, you have less money to pay for a ticket if you have, a taillight out or you didn't have your registration up to date or whatever. And it also made me think about small towns. Like if you're driving from Kansas City to Denver, there are all these tiny ass towns in western Kansas that prey on speeding tickets. So like they raise a lot of money for their little municipalities by, either fibbing how fast you were going over or whatever. So the whole system itself is pretty gnarly. But I wanted to ask you guys really quick, like, I've never lived somewhere like New York where you can take trains and walk a lot of places, but I didn't know if like you guys had experienced or realized that sort of predatory nature of the police ticketing and or
well, it happened to me in Indiana. I mean, I was there for TYT. So, I don't think I was going over the speed limit, driving highway through, we were like an hour outside of, I was driving to St. Louis from Indianapolis. That happened to me. So I did have that experience.
I've got a buddy who lives in Dallas, and we were downtown, hanging out, and then we were going to go to a party out in the suburbs. We got into this certain suburb in Dallas, and all of a sudden they turned the music down, and everybody was looking for cops because apparently they have like, some sort of like public-private partnership or something about made the cops just extremely aggressive in that suburb. North Dakota's not usually so bad.
I think this is. I think it's more rampant in smaller towns where there's just not the same level or opportunity for recourse for people. I mean, I think that's just it. I think like
100%.
Yeah, and and you have no media. You have no media. A small town doesn't have like a strong media. A small town's not going to have like any lawyers or or activists who aren't reliant on the town, the town supervisor, whoever's on the board of aldermen or whatever it is. Yeah, so it's tough. I mean, that's always been my argument, is that, I've had libertarians call in and go, like, we need local authority on all of our government. We need to devolve government all the way down to its local level. That's where things get the most corrupt.
Oh, no, that's horrifying. No way. Okay. All right. Well, I'll stop rambling, guys. I love the show. Love all you guys.
Appreciate the call.
You weren't rambling. All good.
Be careful. Pay attention to the work you're doing. I don't want anybody working in a factory and be like, it was really funny, and then the finger's gone on a fetal dolphin tails. Really disappointed in you guys. The M&M story is an important one. I've been petitioning for less fuckable M&M cartoons ever since getting my dick stuck in the M&M's minis tube in 7th grade.
I remember those minis tubes. Oh, you could just like pour them into your mouth.
Microphone specialist. Sam, I can hear your Sharpie marker every time you write with it. This has been happening for weeks.
I mic'd it up.
It's ASMR.
Yeah, exactly.
Jeez. That's like the 5th time Matt and I have said the same thing at the same time in like the past 2 weeks. Don Jr. I feel like.
Yeah? Well, what about the smoothies guy? Look at this jerk in Connecticut. He got nailed too, didn't he? This is a guy screaming. I mean, I think people are just on edge because of COVID, but it brings out sort of like all the real a-holes. Watch this.
I have no room to yell at us.
I want to speak to the fucking person who made this drink. Is that you?
No, it wasn't me. We don't know who made it, so.
You don't know who made it?
There's 4 of us here, so we obviously don't know.
Fucking stupid, fucking ignorant high school kids.
Okay, bye.
I want to speak to the fucking
Bye.
manager.
Okay, you can call corporate whenever you want. Goodbye. John, stop. You're on camera. You're on camera. You're on camera.
Fucking bitch.
No, I don't care.
Give it to me right now.
What? I'm calling the police. I'm calling the police.
Fuck you! I want the fucking telephone number right now.
Gianna,
I want the telephone number. Shut the fuck up.
You shut up. Get out. You can call corporate whenever you want. Bye.
You're a fucking idiot.
Okay, good for you. Bye.
I want the
Bye.
fucking number.
Bye.
Shut up.
You shut up. You're not gonna tell me to shut up. The fuck? Who are you? Who are you?
Fucking immigrant loser.
What? Fuck you. Get the fuck out. Get the fuck out. Get the fuck out. You're going to jail. You're going to jail, you racist piece of shit.
Ooh, now he's trying to bust into the back. Whoa.
So that was because there was peanut butter in his son's smoothie, who's allergic, and that's like the kind of insane response that.
Well, apparently he never told them up front.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it.
Peanut butter.
I don't doubt it.
And what's interesting though, as he gets angry, look, people get angry. That happens. But what gets revealed when they get angry is where they go to. It's not like you people are effing irresponsible. My son has a peanut allergy. Yeah. You're doing your jobs poorly. You have a responsibility to your customers. No, all of a sudden it becomes you're a bitch. You're an immigrant. Like all this, like all of the sort of like
toxicity.
All the stuff he's storing back every day is released in that instance.
So that went. Did you say? I mean, the outcome is he's a Merrill Lynch employee. Shocker, shocker, and
well, not is he still?
He immediately lost his job and got arrested.
Former Merrill Lynch employee.
Don't fire milkshakes at employees would be a genuine rule of thumb that I would also.
Perfectly legitimate response to say, like, I want corporate's number.
I'm very mad.
I want your manager's number.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I've got a temper. I will go into a tirade and swear sometimes. Everybody here knows that. But it starts to get. I mean, obviously you don't throw things at people, and also he starts to reveal sort of some of his predispositions, as it were.
Oh yes.
When I go crazy like that around here, it's more like, you better get this chocolate out of here.
Yeah, because
everybody almost got fired around here because
we forgot to take home the chocolate. And
Ronald Reagan sent this whole box of chocolate, and it was supposed to have been taken out of the office, and it was just there every day.
It was kind of fun to I mean, honestly, I did not remember to take it home, and I don't think Bradley did either. But
I forgot every time. Every single time.
I forgot every time, but it was great to know when I realized I forgot. Oh, Sam's gonna get increasingly upset.
Because what would happen is I would forget that it was there, and then I would open the fridge and I would see it, and then I couldn't stop. So.
Well, it's gone now.
It's gone.
And you don't have to worry.
But now I'm sad about it. I wish they were back.
Such an abusive relationship you have.
Yeah,
between.
chocolate.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry I yelled at everybody and called you all, teenagers.
Dumb high school kids.
Dumb high school kids.
You do gotta stop calling us dumb high school kids.
Calling from all right, final call of the day. Calling from a 702 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Emily, and I'm calling from Wisconsin.
Emily from Wisconsin. What's on your mind, Emily?
So I'm actually calling because I've been going through some stuff personally recently that I didn't realize was such a huge deal. But the Social Security disability system is really, really messed up. And if it's okay, I'd like to just talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
Thank you so much. So I'm fairly young. I'm under 30, and I have had to try to get Social Security disability. And so I haven't been able to work in 3 years.
3.
And I just got a call. Yeah. And I just got a call from my lawyer on Friday saying that it could be another 2 years. And in the process, you're not allowed to make any money. Even gifts and donations you receive have to be confirmed. So if somebody were to give me $10 for the bus or something like that, I would have to report that to Food Share, to thankfully the pandemic, as sad as it sounds, is one of the best things that happened for me because the stimulus checks came out and they expanded housing department grants, so I was able to get a housing department grant. But that's very strict as well. So again, if I were to get $5, $10 for the bus, they have to call that person and check and confirm how much money they're giving me. So I can't even receive gifts or donations or anything. And it's just crazy. My ex, when I found out that it was going to be another 2 years, because it's impossible to be in a relationship or anything like that when you have no income and anything like that. And so my ex looked, and 110,000 people have died in the past 10 years waiting for disability.
Oh, jeez.
So it's just kind of... Sorry, go ahead.
Well, we had Matthew Cortland on, and I can't remember exactly when it was. He talked about this dynamic, it really is shocking. Because all we tend to hear about Social Security disability is that it's paying out too much and it's too easy and this and that. And I guess it was August 4th of 2021 we had him on to talk about this. It really is a problem, and I don't think people understand this dynamic at all.
They really don't. People see, and even I in the past, you see homeless vets with their signs or anything, and you think, how are they not on disability? How is that not taken care of? And they very well may be in the process of getting it. It's just crazy how hard it is to get. And it feels when you're in the process of it, it very much feels like they just want you to die waiting for it. And I just it's one of those things that, again, like you said, like people talk about how much money pays out in it and stuff, and you don't realize how hard people have to fight to get on it. And then even then, like, they send private investigators out to watch you and make sure that that you're not lying. And it's crazy how in-depth the process is. And I want people to realize that it's not as easy as people make it sound like, because I've heard people say, well, I know someone who got disability because working made them smoke cigarettes. And it's like, well, then they were lying about why they got it.
Right.
But there's just, the public opinion on it is really messed up. And I just kind of wanted to put it out there as something that's going on. And just like looking at it as, how could you be without income for 5 years and not able to even receive gifts? So just kind of something I wanted to note.
I'm so sorry that you're going through this. And I really appreciate you talking about it. But how do you manage to survive? Are you just spending down savings? Like, how do you work that out? I mean, obviously, like, I would imagine it's, you have to do stuff that is like a little bit maybe under the table type of thing or something like that, but that they're sending out people and sort of almost like criminalizing you just for being able to eat and live.
Literally, my Salvation Army, my housing department is through the Salvation Army, and my housing department manager actually told me, because I was honest with her, there are a few people who give me small amounts of money just so that I can take the bus, buy Epsom salt, because I deal with a lot of pain, so I have to take Epsom salt baths. Things like that. So there are people who help me out a little bit, but if they were asked, if they had to verify it, they wouldn't. So even my Salvation Army manager, as far as like getting food stamps and stuff goes, I was denied because after 3 months in Wisconsin, you have to have a job or you have to prove that you're disabled. And since I'm fighting for disability, I actually just got food stamps for the first time in 1.5 years, 2 years this month. So I've been surviving off of charity. So the Salvation Army, there's a thing called Operation Bootstrap where I live, which a lot of the places like Quick Trip and other places will donate goods to them. But yeah, that's really how you have to do it. And a lot of people end up deciding that they have to try to make money. And if the government finds out, your entire claim is messed up. But at this point, when it comes down to it, my lawyers are going to take 25% of whatever my back pay is, as long as I get that back pay. But the government doesn't want to pay out back pay because 5 years worth of back pay at $1,200 a month, they don't want to do that. And then my lawyers take 25%, but if I win, I can buy a house, like put a down payment on a house. I have a life. But if I lose, I have to start all over with no back pay, and then they can grant it to me and save themselves $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. And I think that's what they want to do.
What do you mean they can grant it to you? Well, what's that? What do you mean that last part? In the event that your court case doesn't work and they don't owe you the back pay, what does the grant it to you mean?
So I'm probably saying it wrong because it's hard to get everything figured out for me too. But so essentially, it's not like granting it. It's like right now I'm in a process of originally my hearing was denied, my appeal was denied, so technically I'm done with the process. But my lawyers actually will take it all the way up to the Supreme Court, and they think that my case has the grounds to keep going. So they actually have to appeal to the U.S. Attorney General and everything at this point. And that's where everything comes in. So they're trying to prove that the judge misapplied the law in the first hearing, and that then they would have it reheard. So it's just at this point whether or not they're going to send my case back to start over with allowing me to get back pay for the past, at this point, 3 years. But otherwise, if the judge says no, then I just start over with no back pay. And so that's what they're angling for, is to not allow back pay. And then, but all of my doctors agree that I should get disability. So theoretically, I should be able to get it, but they just don't want to pay back pay or give it in general. So that's what I'm fighting for right now.
Well, I'm really sorry you're going through this.
How can we help?
Honestly, I just wanted to bring attention to the Social Security disability thing. I'm thankful for all of the housing department grant and those things. So anybody that can advocate for homelessness, any of those kinds of things that would help people who just don't have an income and don't have an ability to. But that's really I'm mostly taken care of. I'm okay. But there are a lot of other people that aren't. And this is a system that doesn't need to be defunded. It needs to be restructured, and more people need to be able to be helped because it is underserving the people that need it. And people don't, and most people in the country don't realize that. Other than that, I really just wanted to thank you guys for your time. Emma, you're really wonderful. I loved you on the Young Turks, and I love seeing you here. But you guys are really great, and I really appreciate you guys taking my call.
Oh, of course.
Thank you. Hang in there.
Thank you, Emily.
All right.
I'll be okay. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You
Bye.
too. Bye-bye.
I'm thinking of you. Jeez.
Sounds like a system not working. All right, let's do some IMs and then we'll wrap things up. People should go back and listen to that interview with Matthew Cortland, August 4th. We also, I think, are due to have him back on, too. Talk more about this. Mahomey, 15. Emma, how can you say Allen is better than Mahomes?
This year. I'm not. It's too early to say. Okay, go on. Oh, was that it?
When if Butker doesn't miss that field goal, an extra point, Allen never gets the chance. Not to mention, Mahomes met him throw for throw and marched down the field in overtime to slam the door without Allen ever getting to touch the ball.
Yeah, I don't know how that's. I think Allen does more with less, but they're the two best quarterbacks in the league right now, and it's not particularly close.
Anti-Senstrand, can you comment on Biden installing the judge that oversaw the Donziger civil rights abortion as a federal judge? Nominating? I don't know. I haven't heard anything.
I saw Donziger tweeted about it, but I don't know enough to comment, honestly.
I'll look into it.
I saw he was tweeting that Gillibrand has some connection with the judge, but I mean, that's not shocking.
Militant apathy. When it comes to RFK Jr., I'm just going to go ahead and say what nobody else is saying. How in the F are you a drug addict with no fear of needles the first 3 decades of your adult life and now you're anti-vaccine? It's BS. Let's see. Very important show. The whole system is grossly 100% correct. They punish poor people. It's like the Wheel of Pain on the Conan and Barbarian. Emma Vegan's yard sign. Hi, Sam. Would it be possible to stop saying Omicron has peaked? It may have peaked in the Northeast, but not other places in the U.S. Yes, I understand what you're saying. But at least it gives some indication that it's going to peak there. But yes, I get it. Additionally, if there are no PCR test appointments available and no hospital beds available, how can we truly know if cases are going down? We can see it in we can see it in the context of antigen tests. I mean, you have a baseline that has been established as it goes up. But your first point is a better one. Johnny Milwaukee, what is the leftist position on legalized sports betting? Here in Wisconsin, the Republicans are staunchly against it, which is weird because I would think they would be all about it. I've written some Wisconsin Democrats on the topic and mostly don't have an official position.
I mean, as of now, I don't see any issue with being pro sports betting.
I bet.
I mean, it's just like
you gotta wait until you lose,
right?
Until you have a position.
Well, I've had down but whatever. My point is just that I don't know. It raised a ton of money for New Jersey. I don't understand why any state government would be against it because it's significant tax revenue. It's fairly heavily taxed, but as long as you do it in moderation, it's not the end of the world.
I think it's bad and should be banned.
Yeah,
But I don't know if that's necessarily a leftist
not
position.
in favor. Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a left or right position as much as like I don't think it's healthy.
I don't like speculation or gambling. I don't like casinos either.
Interesting. Okay, well.
I don't have like a leftist sort of like orthodoxy to peg that to. I just think it's evil.
It's just, but one is speculation for fun, and the other is speculation to uphold capital. Like that's what investments are.
But I think the history of gambling in sports isn't great on the impact that it has on the sport either.
A Square, that interview today, Sam and Emma, just a disgrace and dystopian. This is like what they were doing in Ferguson with the traffic violations. Indeed, wish someone in the mainstream media would cover this. Some newspaper, it's expensive and criminal to be poor in this country. All right, 10 more of these. Really cool. Ask the guy about Khalif Browder, the kid who killed himself after Rikers over a stolen backpack.
Oh, yeah.
Is AOC coming on this week? Zachary from BHM. Is there any wonder why conservatives believe poverty is a moral failure in a meritocracy? You can't believe one without the other. Fade away, Jay. Emma, read the Bills game. Cristo Avalos summed it up best. In the MLB, it's not like you don't play the bottom of the 10th if a team scores at the top of the inning. Canadian Football League has a better setup where both teams get possession. The first team scores a TD. They have to go for two. She knows how it's done in the Canadian Football League.
I'd heard that, but I didn't know. I wasn't like familiar with that until recently. I don't watch the
so you're
Canadian
aware of it
Football
now,
League.
though. Like tell Emma what's going on with the football league.
I don't know anything about the Canadian. I'm really following the Alouettes this week.
I think it's just a matter of time.
Maybe.
Mike from MOH. Sam and Emma, I have two questions. One, how can I convince my friends who hate Trump but are largely apolitical to vote in the midterms? And two, what are good debate tips? My mom and I are polar opposites politically. She sometimes says things that I feel like a challenge, but I avoid interacting due to her using what I call the Ben Shapiro style of debating. Well, number two is just too general. There's no way to assess what's going on there.
Debating is like hard with your loved ones. You more just have to calmly explain your positions.
Yeah.
Even though I don't follow that advice. Do as I say, not as I do, probably.
It's funny, I think neuro-linguistic programming is basically hokum, but there's an advice that you start with the concern of the person you're talking to, and salespeople get with this a lot. Figure out what they're concerned about and then speak to that concern.
That's like media training. You get into the circle of trust. In other words, you acknowledge what their issue is. Say how you experience it, and then you go from there.
Don't try to censure them. Try to use their momentum against them.
I mean, sometimes that's all you need to do. I'm quite convinced that Obama started to take off in Iowa in 2008 when he, in my mind, incorrectly said that Social Security is in crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And what he was signaling had nothing to do with his solution or whatnot. He was signaling to these older people in Iowa, I know your concern is Social Security. And I'm not even going to say, I'm going to protect your Social Security. I'm going to start with, your Social Security is in jeopardy. And then all of a sudden, it's like Bill Clinton saying, I feel your pain. In terms of number one, how can I convince my friends who hate Trump but are largely apolitical to vote in the midterms? You tell them that the chances of Trump coming back are far greater if Republicans take the House and the Senate. And part of that is really, on some level, it's because it's an endorsement of what they've been doing, which has been endorsing Trump. I don't know if that's an argument. Jen Hexer. Not to be pedantic, but it's St. Louis with a hard S at the end. Please and thank you. Only people not from St. Louis call it St. Louis. Jen Hexer, I've been single a long time, and I've never gotten my motor started by an M&M. I should also tell you, maybe you should just back off on the correcting people in the St. Louis.
A lot of times we need to see desire modeled.
St. Louis is just more fun to say. But I as soon as that came out of my mouth, I was like, I'm going to hear about this for the rest of the show.
Yeah.
Cucker Tolson. What am I supposed to do? To be turned on by the brown M&M now? Tortured laugh. Unsexy candy mascots? Now I'm really melting in my hand. Oh my gosh. Evangelical galloping. My mom worked for SSI for 30 years, hated all her bosses, and were always underfunded. Where am I now? Like 5 more. Graham Page. The guy admitted he didn't tell them his son had an allergy, only asked for no peanut butter.
Oh.
Bullprog. If my kid's school doesn't teach us how us white people are bad, I'm going to show up on Monday. Spy trans. My friend was homeless and waiting for disability. She said that her social worker said you'll be denied 3 times minimum. While on the street, she was abused and got hooked on drugs and was in really bad shape last time I saw her. If the system intervened before that, she would have needed far less help. It's just horrible. Oh yeah, let's do it tomorrow. We'll do the letter hack. We got the thing from letter hack, and we have more time to do it tomorrow. We'll do it earlier.
What thing?
Well, I think like on his. Well, I'll talk about it tomorrow.
Okay.
Germaclean. The only thing I do when I'm mad is sound very Jamaican. 2 more. Prairie Fire Kowalski. Hey, Sam, Emma, wish we could see the crew more. And why hasn't AOC been made co-host yet? Are you really on the left? Anywho, with the current culture war topics, I have a renewed interest in putting on my Carhartt apparel, wearing a mask, going to buy a bag of sexy M&Ms. This is the dumbest timeline. I'm currently hoping for the aliens to arrive so humanity can unite with the aliens against the GOP and neoliberalism more broadly and fight climate change and poverty. Leftist poggers. Sorry for hanging up, but now I'm glad given the last caller. And the final I am of the day. Justin. I'm so effing disgusted by our system. Even Washington State, they do this bullshit. And even then, some has waived fees. The judge is still orders fines of $200 plus on income of $197 on SSI, but gives 3 months to pay, not to mention other fees that don't go to the courts, that go to other institutions. These stories bring back so many memories of our arbitrary rules for our society, then force fees on us to hurt us further. I know, it's just insane. All right, folks. Matt, Bradley, Emma, great job today. See you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I guess I'm where the choice